Welcome back to the homestead. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. We're getting the camper ready to take our first camping trip in this camper. So one of the things we've done is we've invested heavily into a solar system for this camper. We've got almost 700 watts of PV on the roof, and we've got lithium batteries and some Victron equipment. So why don't we bring you in, we'll show you what we've done and show you how it works. So this camper had a really nice space in the front here. You can see the wall. It was actually perfect for this. So we ended up installing some Battle-Born lithium 100 amp hour 12 volt batteries. We did 2 strings of 2 for 24 volts at 200 amp hours. We put in a Victron Multi Plus 24 volt 3000 VA inverter. We put in one of their Smart Solar MPPT 150 volt input with the 35 amp current limit charge controllers. And then we used the Victron Orion, if I'm saying that correctly, DC to DC converter. So this little box right here takes 24 volts and turns it into 12 volts at up to 70 amps. It's pretty amazing that little box does that, and it works great. And we put in a mini DC from Midnight Solar. We have 300 amp breakers because we left room for a 3rd string of batteries. We have the big 175 amp breaker for the inverter. And on this side over here we have the charge controller breakers. So something else we did is we put in a quad box and we put the DC circuits of the camper in there. So anybody that's ever looked at camper wiring knows that, yeah, it's a little questionable some places. All the positive stuff went to this little fuse relay block and kind of was just all podged together there. So we took and we put the leveling system on its own breaker, we put the camper on its own breaker, and the emergency breakaway brake system on its own breaker, and just cleaned that up. Nice, you know, made a pretty nice clean install. The other things we did is we did put in the Bluetooth to VE bus adapter. I don't remember the exact name of it. We put that in there so we can plug that in and program the inverter as needed. And then we ran the shore power outlet in the camper, feeds into the inverter, and then the inverter feeds into the breaker panel in the camper. So it's right in between everything, so it controls everything. So if I pull the VRM portal up, well, you guys can see that. Let me balance that so I don't move around on you. And you'll see up in the left it shows it's using shore power and it's powering the AC loads. You'll see the battery's at 100% and it's in pass-through. We also have the current limit for the shore power set to 15 amps, which is down here a little farther. So if like the air conditioner came on, it would draw some from the grid and it would draw the rest out of the batteries. So we're playing with that. That way if you're boondocking, and maybe boondocking is the wrong term because usually you don't have electricity. Let's say you're at a friend's house and he says, yeah, you can plug into my outside outlet. You know that outlet's probably only good for about 10 amps. It's probably either a 15 or a 20 amp circuit. So if it's a 20, you really only want to draw about 15. If it's a 15 amp circuit, you probably only want to pull about 10. So being able to quickly change that current limit to your shore power really is nice, because then you can limit that, and the inverter just makes up the difference. So it's a really nice setup. But why don't we go on inside and look at what we did inside. I'm going to go ahead and shut the air conditioner off so you guys can hear me well. Yeah, that's much better. So in here we have the, I believe it's called the Color GX control for the whole Victron system. And this is plugged into the internet, which is this little box right here. This is a cellular internet box by Travel Data. And I'll try to leave a link to that site down below. That one is, I think, $75 a month. We've got a video we did on unboxing the Nomad system, which we're actually still experimenting with as well. So the camper actually has its own internet system, its own network. And the Color GX is plugged into the camper, which lets us do things like see it on the VRM portal. And when you get to that, there's your main display. So right there you can see that we're drawing 18 watts from the shore, powering loads of 17 watts. Charge control is making about 71 watts. The DC loads are doing about 57 watts. So it's kind of a neat way to run the system, program the system, and keep an eye on the system. We took a little piece of hardwood plywood and stained it with the stain we had. It's not a perfect match, but it blends in pretty good. And just kind of wired it all in. The breaker panel's down here. So the inverter feeds that. And that's your AC and DC load center, actually, all in one. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's if I've done my math right, we should be able to boondock and run the air conditioning through the night on those batteries. The air conditioning probably will run about a 25 to 30% duty cycle, depending on where you're at in the country and the temperature and everything else. And if it's running at around a 25 or 30% duty cycle, I figure we can easily go 10 or 12 hours on that bank of batteries if we wanted to. Generally, we find that if you cool the camper off going into the evening, then as it gets darker out, you can open the windows and stay fairly comfortable. But we're kind of excited because that's going to let us really enjoy boondocking with the camper. We don't really have to worry about electricity or all of that. We will, of course, eventually have to dump tanks and get fresh water. So probably what we envision doing is trying to maybe take campsites once every 5-6 days, something to that effect. And then when we do that, of course, when we get a facility that has a 30 amp plug and sewer, we can turn the battery charger on in here and top our lithium batteries off if the solar is not keeping up. So that's kind of what we kind of envision ourselves doing, is when we do our traveling, because it's our goal or our hope is to spend a lot of the winter months on the road exploring the country in warmer areas instead of snowy, beautiful Maine. And when we do that, to save some money, we're kind of looking at a little bit of boondocking. And that's why we did this system, was to be able to do that and still have the comforts of home, still be able to run our computers and work and run the air conditioning if we need it and all that stuff. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We used a vent off the roof to chase our wires down through, and mounted the modules on the roof using a Renogy Z bracket. We actually put 6 brackets per module, and what I did is I put a little bit of I can't remember the name of the tape now, but there's a tape that you can buy for the camper roofs. It's super sticky, super sealant. I put a little bit of that on the bottom of the Z foot, and I put down a little bit of lap sealant, squished it down into that, put my screws down through everything, and then put more lap sealant on. So we don't anticipate having any problems with leaks. There's a lot of different ways you can mount modules on campers. I didn't even want to show it because, like I said, there's a lot of different ways and everybody's got an opinion. So if they're still on there when we get to Tennessee, then we'll show you. How's that? Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe.